Good afternoon, Britain. It's 20 to 1. Let's return to that night of violence in Leeds and speak to Leeds City Councillor Alan Lamb. Alan, a lot of people will be shocked looking at the pictures that we have been seeing, the aftermath, the burnt-out vehicles, the scorch marks on the street. What went wrong?
Well, I'm as shocked as anyone at the scenes we saw in Harehills last night in Leeds. The reason we're so shocked is because this does not reflect everyday life in Harehills and Leeds. It is a one-off incident. From my understanding, the social care workers were doing their job on the order of a judge to make sure some children were safe. The response of family members and others to this was not appropriate. The police were called and things escalated from there.
I mean, Alan, were there no signs that this community could erupt like this?
No, and I think it's really important we don't make excuses or justifications for this kind of appalling behaviour. It is a very diverse community, it's a very deprived community, but this was an isolated incident that then escalated into something much more shocking. So
there aren't any community tensions then, Alan, that you know of?
I think that there are tensions in every community. I'm well aware there's an awful lot of work done in that community, and actually a large proportion of the crowds that were seen were people from the community, from different sectors of it, trying to call for calm and restore order.
And yet what we did see was disorder. We saw this all kicked off by a lack of trust, a lack of respect, a lack of understanding of obviously what social services were trying to do in terms of protecting children. And then that kicked off and escalated and spiralled with further displays of lack of trust, particularly in figures of authority, lack of trust and belief in the police, in the social services. Is that not at the core of what's going on here?
Well, I think, Tom, when something like this happens, you have to, make sure you don't have a knee-jerk reaction to it, but you do need to look and understand what are any underlying causes. The message I think we have to get across is this kind of behaviour is not acceptable, will not be tolerated. It isn't a reflection of our great city or that particular community, but we've got to stamp it out and make sure it isn't something that's going to happen again. Well,
it's certainly a reflection of some of the members of the community, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. But what do you make of West Yorkshire Police and their response? What was appalling to see was that the police were so vastly outnumbered that it appeared as though they were forced into retreat. I mean, that's very concerning, isn't it?
It is, and I think there are questions to be asked of the police response. However, what I would say is, again, in this kind of situation, the police will be criticised whatever they did. My understanding is there were no serious injuries. The police, had they been more heavy-handed and tried to take a different approach, they would probably have been criticised for that. I think whatever they had done, they would have been criticised. I think we should thank and commend them for their bravery in these circumstances. It escalated very quickly, it's not great to see them having to retreat, but at the same time, they need to make sure their officers are safe. They need to make sure the public are safe. They need to make sure they've got the right level of resource on hand and the right equipment. And actually, the fact that they had it under control and things were pretty much dispersed by, my understanding is about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. There are lessons to learn. There are questions to ask.
Alan, wasn't that because members of the local community got involved and forced people out rather than the police taking that action? I mean, did the police come back and sort things out later into the night? Because it appeared as though, and please do correct me if you know more about what exactly happened on the night, but it seemed to me that things actually dispersed almost on their own, rather than the police actually dispersing people.
That's not my understanding, and the assurance I've been given is that had at any point the police felt there was a risk of injury or serious harm to somebody or to property, they were absolutely on hand ready to intervene, and they had to make tactical decisions in the moment. The fact that despite the shocking scenes of violence that we're seeing, there are no reports of any injuries, suggest perhaps they took the right approach in the circumstances. Time will tell, but if they'd gone in heavy-handed with batons and riot shields and tear gas, I'm pretty sure they'd have been getting criticised for that as well.
And Alan, just finally, what can you tell us about Harehills as a community? I've been reading it's got very low educational attainment compared to the national average, very high unemployment compared to the national average. This is a troubled part of Leeds.
Yeah, I know it well. I drive through it most days on my way into Leeds. It is a very deprived part of the city. It is a very diverse part of the city. None of that excuses the behaviour that we saw last night. It is a city that needs support. It's been under a Labour council for a very long time, under a Labour mayor for a very long time. And in my view, it's a community that's been let down, and we need to support, we need to understand the issues. But this is not a way to express your frustration at the system. It's not a way to express any grievances you have at the authorities, and we have to be crystal clear that that is not acceptable.
I mean, Alan, do you understand whether there's been any arrests since? Obviously, there was a huge amount of criminal behaviour.
Yeah, my understanding is that the police have got extremely good footage, both from their own police watch and from things that people have submitted online. As ever, there was a lot of cameras about, and I would urge anyone who's got information to submit that to the police. I'm told there will be arrests, and quite rightly, the full force of the law will be thrown at those that were seen setting fire to buses and vehicles and deliberately trying to stoke even more tension than was already there.
Well, let's hope those arrests can be made in quick order. Leeds City Councillor Alan Lamb, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean.